Hey y'all, this is Michaela. I'm a part-time college student majoring in psychology while I work here on the farm. When I was in high school, I broke my ankle playing basketball, and the entire thing ended up being an ordeal. For context, I absolutely hated basketball. Not only had I broken the ankle, but I had broken it in the strangest way possible and needed surgery. But there was a catch, because there's always a catch. Because the break was in such a strange spot, it took us 3 months to find a surgeon who would be able to fix it, and be covered by our insurance. 3 months of unknowns. 3 months of standstill. 3 months of trying to plan around a surgery that we couldn't even get on the calendar. 3 months of being pissed off at the world. 3 months of anxiety, 3 months of depression, and 3 months of going, God, what the actual heck? Needless to say, 15-year-old me wasn't dealing. It didn't matter what anyone said, or how gratifying it was to look at my dad and tell him, I told you so. When the x-ray showed it was broken, it sucked, and I was pissed. I was angry at doctors, I was angry at insurance, I was angry at opinionated coaches, I was angry at family that just kept telling me to go with the flow. I was angry with God. Why would he make me wait this long if he obviously knew how upset this was making me? Trust me, I wasn't covering anything up. Why would he dangle the carrot right in front of me, only to jerk it away last minute? Hot mess was an understatement. I was acting like a steaming pile of crap. And the absolute cherry on top of the cake was that 3 months later, we finally get to a surgeon who decides, you know what? Since it's not hurting you, and at the time it wasn't, I don't see any point in doing surgery. Seriously, God? I spent all this time worrying about that, only for you to say, never mind. Then it hit me. He absolutely did give me those 3 months, but not for me to worry. I believe wholeheartedly that whenever God puts you through a struggle, it's for you to learn something. And if he puts you through the same struggle over and over again, let's say for, 3 months, then you probably weren't learning the lesson. So what was God trying to teach me? For starters, patience. That's the no-duh statement of the year. But overall, I think he was trying to teach me to be okay when his plans aren't my plans. I got so wrapped up in the problem being solved my way that I was genuinely upset when he said that I didn't need surgery. How crazy is that? 15-year-old me was upset with God for working a miracle in me. That's crazy selfish. Which leads me to where I'm at now. The dreaded problem is back. My ankle is giving me problems again, and as much as I've been able to see looking back at what 15-year-old me messed up, 20-year-old me can feel the old girl just clawing her way back out. My sister and I have this running joke that when one of us is being a turd, the other one will say, oh, that was Patricia. So for the purpose of this blog, we'll call the 15-year-old me, just begging to make her come back, Patricia. Patricia doesn't like that the doctor's office was closed on Memorial Day. How inconvenient. Patricia doesn't like that she couldn't get a hold of the clinic the next day. Patricia doesn't like that she got an appointment, but she still couldn't get the MRI for several days. Patricia is a self-centered turd who needs to be kept in her place. Let's face it, we all have those voices inside of us that have to be kept in check, especially when we're tired, hurting, or frustrated. It's easy to listen to those voices, especially when you aren't focused on God and what He is telling you. For me, going back to Patricia is easy because she just gets me. She would never tell me to quit being so dang grumpy and to suck it up. And that when you ask God to work in your life, you don't get to pick and choose how He works in your life. So while my 20-year-old self is working really hard to say, God, let your will be done in my life, Patricia has to be told to sit her hiney down. That means that I need to be okay with however God decides to work in me. If that means He miraculously heals my foot altogether, great. If He decides to wait a bit longer before we fix it, awesome. If He decides to have surgery and get a doctor to fix it, fantastic. Whatever it is, He decides what to do with my foot. That is His foot too. The greatest threat to being content with his plan is focusing on my own expectations. Because, let's be real, no matter how he decides to fix the problem, the Patricia and me would still look for a way to be upset about it, if I let her. This doesn't mean that we should wash our hands and not do anything because God is in control, and take a vacation. It means that we have to be able to surrender our foot to him and be okay with him changing our plans. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." When plans change, God stays the same. He will take care of us, he will love us, and he will always be with us. So whatever your foot is, give it to God. And whenever things get tough or scary or uncomfortable, hang on to him. If he can create the entire world in 7 days, make every one of the dinosaurs that only my cousin Ben can pronounce, move mountains, or paint every sunrise, he can fix your foot too.
Hey, Mac. I like the blog, and I like your honesty in talking about it especially. I think of one thing. You're 20, and I'm almost 75. And I think the difference between that and I hear you and they're talking about this and how it took you 5 years, and it came again, and finally you're coming to the place of resolving. I really wish that people could come to the place of resolving the resolve. I know it took me longer than 20 years to do it. Every time something would come up, I'd be like, oh no, God, is this. Impatient. Mm-hmm. At times disbelieving, because I never thought about how to put it away. Mm-hmm. Why do we revisit these things over and over and over again? I mean, you got a broken foot, you've gone through surgery now, it's great. We haven't got the cast off yet, which is great. When do we put all these things behind us? Okay, if it's a broken foot, what about tomorrow? About a broken ankle, a broken arm, mm-hmm. separated shoulder. When do I say, this is just like that one, so I know the end is going to be the same because God's the same.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, for me personally, I know it takes kind of having that experience of walking through it with God. It was like, for me, having surgery was like the worst thing in the world because it scared the ever-loving daylights out of me. And now, having done it once, that fear, for me, probably will always still be there. But I know that it'll be okay. Nothing bad happened last time, so I'm going to run with that. Nothing bad will happen again. It'll be okay. And even if something bad does happen, God is still there with me because God was there when I broke my foot. God was there when we decided I needed surgery. God has always been there. And I know for me, 21-year-old me still loses her head and is like, God, where are you? And he's standing behind me, hitting me on the back of the head. I'm right behind you, kid.
Don't worry about it. All along the way, I've done those same things and gone over them again, and God has always been the same. The Bible says God's the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Right.
And it's us that's the variable.
Oh, yeah.
I just try to think, how could you save so many people the anxiety? I mean, going through it once is almost like, it's almost like necessary.
Yeah.
Because you don't know exactly what to experience, so your mind races over, they cut the wrong foot off. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? But I think once you go through it one time, and then you take the time to say, this will probably happen again some way.
Yeah.
I mean, quite honestly, now you're going to have a scar on the side of your foot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I have scars almost everywhere on my body, from broken bones and shoulder surgery and heart surgery and everything else. And I think maybe you come to the place of saying, if I live, I live into the Lord. If I die, I die into the Lord. So whether I live or die, I am the Lord's. That would seem to satisfy it, but sometimes I think we're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is new and different. Well, maybe new and different from us, but it's the same for God. I mean, I like that, that you go through and you experience it. Now the next time you go, if there is another time that you have another surgery, you can say, I've been there and done that, or you can say, God's gone, God's changed, only to realize God doesn't change.
Right.
Our mind changes, our worries change, but God doesn't change. But I think, man, I wished I had come to conclusions like you're coming to when I was 35. Then I could have gone, yep, no matter what I go through, I know God's going to be there. But I don't know if it's because we're just creatures who spend too much time in the emotion or what. But I love your blogs. I think it's, you can almost write a book, My Life, according to Mac, of all the things you've endured. But the good thing about it is you endured them.
Yeah.
And you learned.
Yeah.
That is so great. No more wilderness ventures for you for 40 more years.
Yes.
Out there in the wilderness.
There are some mistakes that I've made getting to 21 that I would never, ever make again. Like, God, thank you for showing me that I don't ever want to do that again.
So I'm curious. You can look at me and I can point to any part of my body and say, yeah, this operation, that operation. But sometimes why is it that we can't grasp what other people have gone through because we think is it because we think we're unique to it?
Personally for me, it's less of, this has only ever happened to me, you don't get it, but more that I'm out of control. And nobody likes being out of control, and I certainly don't like being out of control.
So really the fear is being out of control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mac.
Yeah.
I think the fear is from a surgery. Do I wake up from it? Am I still in control?
Yeah.
Or has something altered me so much now I'm losing control?
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're genuinely right, Mac. I think if we look at our lives and say, you know what? If I didn't fear not being in control, I could be pleasantly pleased with God being in control.
Yeah.
So write me another blog and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mac.
Thanks, Pa.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining us for Around the Supper Table. At Sanctuary Family Farms, we want to be real. Whether that's through our blogs, daily verses, or even Nana's recipes, we want to share the messages that God has laid on each of our hearts. If you liked what you heard today or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Sanctuary Family Farms or our website at www.sanctuaryfamilyfarms.com, where we share our recipes and blogs and sell farm fresh beef and pork. We can't wait for you to join us again for next week's episode.